Win and you're in. A lot of you are going to be in that situation this week. So who do you pick up? We love Sam Darnold. Of course, you got to go get Jonathan Williams. How much, though, should you be prioritizing Rashad Penny given the uncertainty of his role? Take a look at Didi Westbrook. Take a look at Sterling Shepard now that Golden Tate is in the concussion protocol. And there are some good tight ends. There are a lot of great DSTs. You can tell I'm excited to talk about the waiver wire, and I'm super excited to talk about Lamar Jackson. So let's do it. Well, this is a waiver wire show, but how do you not lead with Lamar Jackson? Whoa, he is just incredible. Welcome to the Tuesday edition of Fantasy Football Today. A lot of guys to pick up this week, some really good quarterback matchups. Sam Darnold, Ryan Tannehill doesn't necessarily have a great matchup, but he's Ryan Tannehill. Does it even matter? Nick Foles does have a great matchup. Yeah, I know. And we'll talk about running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. Jack Doyle could get a big bump in targets now. Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton could get a big bump in targets. Everything you need to know for the waiver wire. Good morning, Dave and Jamie. Lamar Jackson, OMG.
Oh, yeah. He's outstanding, and every time I watch him play, I think how incredible he is, and I think about how dumb I feel for saying, well, you better watch out. He might not stay healthy. I don't know how good of a thrower he is. And those were words that I actually said in July and August and feel like a total heel about it. And at the same time, I have Lamar Jackson in a league where it was an auction league. I tried to bid him up so you would bid 3, so Heath would bid 3. Neither of you bid 3. I got him at 2. I'm going to the playoffs.
I'm sure most.
I got Lamar Jackson as my quarterback in that league.
I did. I mean, that's the case with most quarterbacks that aren't ranked in the top 2 or 3 in any auction league. I think in most leagues.
Sure.
I posted a poll last night. Would you draft Lamar Jackson first overall next year? Almost 8,000 votes. What do you think the results are, Adam?
Well, I actually saw it, and it inspired me to do a different Twitter poll, but I
haven't seen it yet.
Guess.
Yeah, I haven't seen this poll. I'm going to say I'm going to have some faith in our audience in that only a third of them said they would take him in the first round.
Yep,
next year.
33% said yes, 67% said no.
Okay, so then
at least I got that right about Lamar Jackson. All right, now I'm on the right track.
When should Lamar Jackson be drafted next season? I did it this morning, so only 1,500 votes. Top 6 pick 7 through 12 of round 1, round 2, or round 3 or later. I am stunned that 30% said round 3 or later for Lamar Jackson. 37% said round 2. 16% said top 6 pick, and 18% said round 1 pick 7 through 12, which is kind of what I thought would win. And honestly, I think he's a first round pick. Like for me, and that's crazy because I know none of us ever pick quarterbacks that early, but he's just so good. Now, he's averaging right now in a 6-point per passing touchdown league, basically exactly what, or very close to what Mahomes averaged last year. And it's so hard to repeat. And we could talk about this for 5 minutes, so we'll save it for a different show so we can get to the waiver wire. But I just think it's amazing what he's doing, and we did want to see how people valued him. I was surprised that 30% of people said round 3 or later. He's not going to make it that long.
No.
But how about this?
He'll be drafted in the first round on average next year. I mean, Mahomes was. So.
Yeah. In their last 3 games, sorry, Dave, their last 3 games, 6-point per passing touchdown leagues, Lamar Jackson has scored 122 fantasy points. Jared Goff has scored 11 fantasy points.
That's
amazing. That is so awesome.
One of those guys has a $100 million contract.
Yeah. And
one's going to break the bank in a year.
One's going to have $200 million contract. The DST for the Ravens was only started in 66% of leagues. It's almost universally owned. 5 huge games in a row. At Seattle, New England, at Cincinnati, Houston, and at the Rams. 4 good offense. Well, I don't know about the Rams, but, that they have been unstoppable. This team right now is clearly, if not the best, one of the best. And damn, can we flex their game on Sunday against the 49ers?
Yeah, no, they can't, unfortunately.
Nope.
It's probably the best game of the season right now. You look at this. First off, Lamar Jackson won the MVP last night. Because Russell Wilson, while he won the game, he didn't play very well against the Eagles, and so unless there's just a total collapse from Lamar Jackson down the stretch, he's the MVP of the NFL. the big turnaround for this team has been the defense. You know, the trade to get Marcus Peters and getting Jimmy Smith back and just what that secondary looks like now. And, you know, it's going to be fun to see if they can get home field advantage, because if not, going into Foxborough for the AFC Championship game, that's how it works out. You'd probably still give the edge to the Patriots, but you can't look at any team in comparison to the Ravens right now and say that there's a better team. San Francisco's been fantastic. You know, you could still make the case clearly for New England and that defense, but I mean, with what this team looks like on both sides of the ball, it's just unbelievable how they've come on of late, and they're hitting their stride.
If they stay healthy, no one's beating them. It's over. No one's beating, and they're going to destroy San Francisco this week. No one's got the answer for how to solve this offense, and it's hard to solve it because they've fundamentally so good running the ball and scheming up passes for Jackson.
I'd love to just see Bill Belichick get another crack at them. That game would be in Foxborough, and if Julian Edelman doesn't fumble that ball, you know, the Patriots had a chance to go in there and win.
You're assuming it's in Foxborough. It's in Foxborough right now.
Yeah, it's in Foxborough right now. So yeah, you never know. They still have some tough games left. These Patriots, that is. I would just hope that in their playoff run, the Ravens will get a first-round bye, and then hopefully they play Mahomes, and then hopefully they play the Patriots, and Roger Goodell is going to be swimming in a bed of money because this is just going to be a ratings bonanza.
even if it's Chiefs Patriots, you know, you win that way too.
Yeah. Yeah,
well, he tweeted something. Can we just get to the Final Four and see Jackson, Brady, Mahomes, and Watson? And I said you spelled Tannehill wrong.
All right, speaking of Tannehill, let's get to the waiver wire priorities. By the way, Apple Podcasts review mailbag tomorrow. If you have questions about the Thursday games, don't wait. Get those questions. They take a little bit of time to show up on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, so leave us a nice review and ask your questions. And we're going to preview all 3 of the Thanksgiving games on the Wednesday show. So, and by the way, normal programming week for us. We're recording on Thursday morning. We're recording on Friday morning. Normal week. We'll have a mailbag and everything. Also, the Facebook giveaway this week, the player you're thankful for. That's very nice. Player you're thankful for. You'll get a T-shirt on the Fantasy Football Today Facebook page. If you have the best one, we'll pick it at the end of the week. Top priorities. Who are they? Who are the top priorities this week, guys, on waivers?
It's an interesting week of players that are still available, just on the cusp of the guys that we typically talk about. So Jonathan Williams, if he's still out there, you have to go pick him up. And clearly we saw last week what he's capable of doing as the Marlon Mack replacement, and Mack has already been ruled out for Week 13. If you're just talking about running backs, I think you got to pick up Rashad Penny and just see what happens there after Chris Carson fumbled again. Penny had his breakout game of this season, and you know how Pete Carroll is. He's going to make it an open competition for this week, and we'll see if Penny sort of pushes Carson to the side a little bit. I'd be surprised if that happens, but still you want to have Penny on your roster. And then there's just a slew of receivers that can be starters for you this week. They're better off as number 3 guys, but Didi Westbrook and the way that he's been playing, certainly his targets. Obviously the 2 guys for the Giants with Golden Tate not being there. Cole Beasley has certainly played well and has a good opportunity. A.J. Brown, and just the way that Ryan Tannehill's throwing the ball. So there's a lot of good mid-range options. The 2 running backs I think at the top are probably the 2 you want to gravitate toward, and then there's obviously the quarterbacks and Sam Darnold and Ryan Tannehill, and I think Darnold right now might be the start of the week for week number 13.
He should be. Ooh. Awesome matchup for him, and he's been playing great. What about Jack Doyle at tight end? Is he a priority?
He's a priority. He's not my favorite tight end because Ryan Griffin is still available. But you're still talking about a team. We had this conversation yesterday. They don't throw the ball so much, So, and I think if you're looking at it in the guys in the same range, I would rather have Gerald Everett for the 1 week situation against the Cardinals than Jack Doyle maybe for the next few weeks. I'd rather just stream. And I mean that just if I can only pick up one of the 2.
Right.
I'd take the shot on the Cardinals matchup versus the potential long-term appeal of Doyle. I think he's going to be fine. I think he's got top 10.
I agree.
Ability rest away.
Right.
But the volume is just not there for this team. And I think that's the concern is he going to see enough targets to be consistently successful?
I like him as the top tight end to go get. I've been on Ryan Griffin for a couple of weeks now, but Doyle has this great opportunity with Eric Ebron gone to be the main tight end there. And if you're tired of streaming, he's a tight end that theoretically should be your starter the rest of the way.
Yeah, Jack Doyle a couple of years ago, before they got Eric Ebron, was a top 10 tight end, and he was second in the NFL in catches. And in his career, He catches 75%, right about 75% of his targets. He's just very good at that. At his catch rate's really good. So he should be better in PPR. But the other thing to factor in here is that in the red zone, Eric Ebron leads the team in red zone targets. If you missed it, by the way, Eric Ebron is out for the season. He's on IR. So Jack Doyle, 56% owned. I think this actually, I'm hoping this is going to benefit T.Y. Hilton. Get a little bit more red zone work there. But they're going to have to throw. Ebron's a touchdown guy, so they're going to have to throw more to some other guys there, and maybe it's Jack Doyle, who is facing Tennessee, and they've allowed the 7th most fantasy points to tight ends this year. They've faced Hooper, Kelsey, and Hunter Henry, so that's contributed to it. And then the next week, Doyle's got Tampa Bay, and they've allowed the 2nd most fantasy points to tight ends, so he's got good matchups. Ryan Griffin does too. You can go after those guys. Jamie mentioned Didi Westbrook. The Buccaneers have allowed either 70 or more yards to multiple wide receivers or a touchdown catch to multiple wide receivers in every game since week 1. So week 1 they didn't. Every game since then, 2 wide receivers have either had 70 yards or a touchdown. That's incredible. And we'll talk about the Giants guys. I don't think you mentioned Benny Snell. How does he compare with Jonathan Williams and Rashad Penny?
So I would put him as the 3rd running back to pick up. James Conner doesn't sound like he's going to come back, but you're probably looking at.
Wait. What do you mean?
This week.
This week.
This week. Yeah. I'm sorry. This week. So I think you're looking at it as it's pretty clear that they've wanted to use a lead rusher in conjunction with Jaylen Samuels, and obviously, as we saw last week, Jaylen Samuels was a little bit of a non-factor. You brought this up, Adam. I think it was either on the radio show or one of our shows last week about Kareth White. And he played a role. So there's going to be 3 guys potentially touching the ball. So I think that limits the upside for Snell. But as long as James Conner is out, and again, that's the expectation for this week, you're probably looking at 15 carries. And in an offense that's going to try and be as conservative as possible and let their defense and kicking game probably win the game. I don't think it's a bad idea to pick up Snell, but I would certainly put him behind Williams and Penny.
I'd put him behind Williams, but not Penny. We can get into this now or later, Adam. It's up to you.
Yeah, let's do it. So it's kind of interesting because, especially if you're talking about Fab, I don't know how relevant a Fab conversation is right now. If you got to win to get in the playoffs, you got to spend it. But I'm just worried that Rashad Penny is going to be a waste because I understand. My goodness, if he does just get the job, you could be talking about a top 5 to 10 running back. But if he doesn't,
that's the if. And that's why you're taking a chance on it.
And I feel like we've fallen for the Rashad Penny trap at least twice already in his career. And every time we fall for it, here's this guy. He's got great talent. Look, he just made a great play. Chris Carson ends up roaring back and playing well. I get that they're going to use Penny more. They're saying it now. But as soon as he gets in there and he's got 6 or 7 carries and they go for under 4 yards per carry, it's going to be right back to Chris Carson. I don't know how much patience they have for Penny at this point.
If Carson fumbles again, he may not see the field.
I know, but at the same time,
that's why you pick up Rashad Penny.
Carson has been fumbling like every other game all season long, and he continues to see a lot.
Well, Penny had the injury concern, during the season. So I think the fact that he had the big game in at the same point of Carson having yet another fumble, and so you're talking about Benny Snell may be good for this week, and maybe. Is the better play? Not maybe is the better play for this week. But if Rashad Penny takes over, he's a league winner, and so it just depends. I think what you need for your fantasy team. If Penny is the lead guy for the Seahawks because Chris Carson can't hold on to the football, they're going to bench Chris Carson and lean on Rashad Penny. And this is a much better offense, and he's a much better talent than Benny Snell. So I'd rather take my chances on the guy who could be a league winner as opposed to a guy that could just a plug and play for this week. So it just comes down to what you need.
If I've got Chris Carson, obviously Penny goes ahead of Jonathan Williams practically because you want to go and get that guy on your team. And I think you said it best. If you need a running back this week, Snell's the answer. I would take Snell ahead of Penny if I'm choosing between the two of them.
So you take Snell ahead of Penny. Okay. But
unless I'm speculating. Hold on.
Right?
I should say this. If I don't need a running back this week and I'm headed toward the playoffs and got that roster spot open at the end of my bench, sure, you speculate on Penny and you spend the fab to do it. But I like Snell better in week 13.
You don't necessarily, if you're picking up Rashad Penny, you don't pick him up to start him this week. Let's be clear, right?
Nope.
You pick him up to stash him and see what happens.
Unless we get reports that he's going to be the lead guy. If that's the case, then he's better than Jonathan Williams.
Right. Now, Jonathan Williams Okay, so let's say you're all these running backs, 4 running backs are on waivers. Bo Scarborough, Jonathan Williams, Benny Snell, and Rashad Penny. How would you prioritize them? Let's just put this out there.
Williams is one by far. There's nobody close. Then, again, it comes down to what you need. If you need somebody for this week, I would say Scarborough should be second, Snell third, and Penny fourth.
I agree. And if you're looking long term, I think it's Williams still ahead of Scarborough and Penny ahead of Snell. If it's strictly long term, you don't have to have a running back immediately.
Do you fear with Jonathan Williams that Jordan Wilkins could get more work because he was only used on special teams last week? Plus, he's got Tennessee this week, then Tampa Bay and New Orleans. We know that those are tough matchups. And you've got Marlon Mack maybe coming back. Are there any concerns, or is Jonathan Williams the lead running back? He's 60% owned, and he absolutely needs to be owned in all leagues.
I think he proved in the game last week that he's their main back.
I think if he had struggled, then maybe you would have seen more of Jordan Wilkins. But the fact that they gave him as much work as he got, that they didn't even give Wilkins an opportunity to touch the ball just to sort of take the load off of Williams. I mean, this is what this team is. This is my concern with Doyle, is that this is what this team is. They're just going to be ultra conservative and try and run the ball as much as they can. And they're not trusting Jacoby Brissett to make a lot of plays. And so, if you're talking about a running back, I forget what the amount of carries they had against Jacksonville, but it was, almost 30. And then you come back the next week and you have over 30 carries. That's just shows you what this offense is.
3 straight games for Brissett, throwing 24, 25 passes, not including the game in which he got hurt. So Jonathan Williams is a major priority. Sam Darnold's going to be a major priority. Nick Foles has a great matchup. Ryan Tannehill's been awesome. And let's see what else we got here. Fab, I don't know. Again, I'm not sure how much.
Every scenario is different. If this is it for you, you're 6-6, and this is the win that gets you in the playoffs. Who cares? Spend it all, and then you just sort of figure out. Obviously, if you have $0 bids, that's a different story. But if you don't have $0 bids, but I think you're just talking about you got to win, and so you don't get to take it with you. Spend it.
Yeah. Just so everyone knows, I don't know how much time we're going to spend on the Sunday night and Monday night games. I'd like to talk about them, but this is such an important waiver wire week, and I want to look ahead to other weeks as well. So let me just give a few more priorities that need to be said just in case I forget, as I often do. Austin Hooper and Evan Ingram are mostly owned, but they could be available in your leagues. They're about 88% owned. Hooper, is there a chance Hooper plays this week? It's a Thursday game.
It doesn't sound like it. I think had they won, and see if they could play out the string and win out. Not that they were going to make the playoffs, but that might have changed some things. But the fact that they said last week that he could have practiced on Thursday, this was at the beginning of last week, I'm going to guess that he's not far away from playing, but the Thursday game just doesn't help.
Mm-hmm. And Evan Ingram has pretty good matchups going forward as well, so you might want to pick him up. I think the Eagles DST, talked about this on yesterday's show. If you didn't listen to yesterday's show, you should at least check out what Dr. David Chow had to say. I asked him about Tua Tagovailoa. I asked him about injury-prone players. We had really good injury conversations. And then Will Chris Towers, and I, we talked about DSTs that could help you win right now and throughout the playoffs. The Eagles are playing great, and they've got the Dolphins, Giants, and Redskins in their next 3 games. So that's a big priority as well. The Jets DST is playing really well, and they've got good matchups coming up, at least in their next 2 games. But the Eagles DST, for me at least, will be a DST I'm prioritizing if I don't love my defense. And it's also a good time to get your handcuffs. It's also a good time to get Butcher Box, all right? This is great stuff. Butcher Box, I was talking about it over the weekend at Friendsgiving. It would have been great for Friendsgiving, by the way. Talking about it over the weekend. Oh, what's Butcher Box? Well, look, if you are someone who's interested in having sort of healthier meat with no antibiotics, no added hormones, humanely raised. This is important, high quality stuff. This is really something that's important to me, and I have trouble finding it at the grocery store. Well, ButcherBox is a solution to that. If you go to butcherbox.com/FFT or you use the promo code FFT at checkout, you're going to get a great deal, a Black Friday deal. It's your first box comes with ButcherBox's Ultimate Steak Sampler. That is 8 free steaks, 2 fillets, 2 top sirloins, and 2 New York strip steaks, and $20 off your first box. ButcherBox.com/FFT or use the code FFT at checkout. I've gotten the delivery before, this big box of meat. It's absolutely delicious. They have free-range chicken. They've got all different types of stuff. It's 100% grass-fed and finished beef, free-range organic chicken, I should say, heritage pork, wild-caught Alaskan salmon, sugar, nitrate-free bacon. It's just great stuff. It's delicious. So go to butcherbox.com/FFT or enter FFT at checkout. And again, get $20 off your first box and get 8 free steaks. butcherbox.com/FFT or FFT at checkout. Whew, man, a lot of stuff going on here. Let's take a look at the key injuries that we need to know about. I'll try to go through these as quickly as possible. Andy Dalton's going to start for the Bengals. He's an option against the Jets this week, right? Andy Dalton, he really wasn't that bad before he got benched, at least for
100%.
purposes.
Yep.
He's an option in DFS, too, because his price is super cheap. He won't have to do much to give you good value. So if you like a lot of players at running back and wide receiver, Andy Dalton should be your quarterback.
Yeah, 20 plus fantasy points in 3 of his last 4 starts before getting benched. And the Jets, I know they did well last week against Derek Carr, but they have just been awful in their previous 5 games. So it's a good setup.
Their defense is playing better. Their secondary is playing better.
Defense is 100% playing better. But the hope would be is that all of a sudden AJ Green's ankle feels better because his buddy is back playing again. And so it's a fun little scenario to play out if in fact Green comes back.
And that would hurt the Jets' DST for this week, obviously.
I think it hurts it to begin with if Dalton's playing. I mean,
yeah.
I had the Jets top 5 before this move, and so now they're just outside my top 12.
Yeah, I did look. Then the Bengals were a good matchup even with Andy Dalton playing. But all right, Devin Hodges is probably going to start for Pittsburgh. Haven't heard an official announcement there. Drew Lock could start for Denver. Carson Wentz has a bruised hand. No big deal. Dwayne Haskins played through a wrist injury. No big deal. Asked Dr. Chow about those yesterday. We won't get Marlon Mack this week. James Conner, unlikely to play. Matt LaFleur said he needs to get the ball to Aaron Jones more. LaShawn McCoy's out of the concussion protocol. Do we know if Damian Williams will be ready for this week?
They didn't say anything yesterday. Andy Reid didn't say anything yesterday. I didn't see anything reported, but that's probably a good thing. You know, they're typically when Reid first meets with the media, he usually goes through the injury list. And so the fact that I don't think anything was reported about Williams is a good sign. You know, he left his last game with a rib injury, but they also had their bye. It seemed like they were just going to, I think, be cautious with any of their injuries given the setup in Mexico City. Tyreek Hill seemed like he could have come back in with the hamstring problem. And Williams, you know, again, not knowing the severity of it. Hopefully he's fine, but I think it's still worth investing in McCoy or Darryl Williams just in case. Because if we don't hear anything on Tuesday, that's somebody that could be a league winner for you, as we saw in that game against the Chargers. Both running backs were successful.
Okay, so let's see what else we got at running back. And that's the thing with the Chiefs. Like, if you see LaShawn McCoy out there and you knew Damian Williams was out, same with Darryl Williams, they'd probably be must-add guys. But, you know, we just don't know right now. Hopefully we get an update before you have to make your waiver claims. Jordan Howard's day-to-day with a shoulder injury. Still don't know if he'll be back.
Right.
Yeah. That's what I said, right? Shoulder.
Right. Yeah. Right. Sure. Shoulder. Sure.
What do you mean?
It's a stinger.
That's a shoulder, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, technically, yeah. Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're pretty close, right?
It's right there.
Yeah, pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
Chase Edmonds expected to play. Kalen Ballage is going to continue to start for Miami. That's great news. Devonta Freeman, Dr. Chow was not super optimistic. That's pretty much it for the noteworthy running backs. At wide receiver, Julio Jones does have a shoulder injury. You got to keep that in mind. They have a short week. Andy Reid optimistic about Tyreek Hill, AJ Green's day-to-day. Golden Tate is in the concussion protocol. Hunter Renfro will be out for a while with a broken rib. He might and a punctured lung. He might be out for the season. Does that make it easier to drop Derek Carr?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the schedule's, you know, the stretch of good games for Derek Carr ended against the Jets, and it ended before the Jets game, apparently, because he didn't play well in that matchup.
Hopefully this helps Darren Waller's value rebound a little bit.
Yep,
that's a good
that'd
point.
be nice.
Yep. And Tyrone Williams. Tyrone Williams has not had a red zone target since he came back from the injury. He had 6 in his first 4 games. He has not had 1 Tyrone Williams in his last 5 games. I find that to be amazing. And a lot of them have gone to Hunter Renfro, so that could help Tyrell as well. Jordan Matthews, released by the Eagles. He actually played 96% of the snaps last week. Maybe that means Alshon Jeffrey or Aguilar could be coming back at Miami. Juju, expecting him? What do you think?
It's hard to say at this point. You know, I would hope. I wonder if the knee is worse than probably the concussion, just because, you know, Deontay Johnson was able to clear the concussion protocol. You hope that Juju does as well, and then we'll see if the knee is a problem. The fact that he was in a knee brace last week is not a good sign.
Okay, Adam Thielen, what do we think? Any idea?
I'm going to guess he comes back, but it's one that you want to keep an eye on, because if you're looking at the tight ends, Kyle Rudolph has been awesome without Thielen on the field. Could he still be good with Thielen back? Maybe, but just the way the season has unfolded, Rudolph was terrible before Thielen started getting banged up in that game against Detroit, and then since then he's just been basically a must-start tight end. We haven't been treating him that way, but the performance has spoken to that.
And, okay, so Courtland Sutton I see with an ankle injury. Is that just a day-to-day thing? Or
I think it's day-to-day.
Concern?
He might not even practice on Wednesday because of it, but he should be. We're expecting him to play.
He didn't finish the game against Buffalo, so just keep an eye on it.
He's probably just discouraged. He had like 1 or 2 catches on 8 targets.
He's John Brown circa 2018.
Oh, jeez. Well, this was his first really bad game for Courtland Sutton.
No. He just misses Joe Flacco.
Okay, I see. David Njoku status uncertain for this week, and Delaney Walker, same thing. Jacob Hollister has a foot issue, but we expect him to play as of now. And that's going to be it for the injuries. So let's talk about the waiver wire here. And usually we do priorities now and go deeper later. Let's just do it all. Let's just do the waiver wire and start with quarterbacks. So what do we got, Jamie? Who are the top quarterbacks? I think there's probably, I could say, 3 to 4 pretty exciting options on waivers. What do you think?
I think there's 2 exciting options. I think there's 4 potential starters for you. But the 2 exciting options, I mean, Sam Darnold, we've said for weeks, look at the schedule, look at the opportunities in front of him. And the Dolphins game should have been better, obviously, with the Ryan Griffin touchdown that he didn't get. But then since then, at least 23 or more fantasy points against Washington, the Giants, and Oakland, with the last 2 being fantastic performances. And he still has some good games in front of him, this week and then Miami again. So there's a chance for him to be, I have him ranked in my top 5. I think there's a lot of upside for Sam Darnold. And so hopefully he takes advantage of the game against Cincinnati. Ryan Tannehill has just been a monster. Heath said yesterday, I didn't go back and double-check this, but I'm assuming it's right, that since he's taken over as a starter the last 5 games, there's only one fantasy quarterback better than him, and that's Lamar Jackson. So that 5-game stretch, he's just been a star. And it's not an easy matchup. You said this, but the last 2 quarterbacks that the Colts have faced have each scored 21 or more points. So I think he has an opportunity to keep it going. And then, Dalton, Foles, good matchups, and will they take advantage of it? Did Tampa Bay's defense turn the corner last week?
No.
I agree with you. I agree with you, but they did a good job against Matt Ryan and the Falcons, and just reading some things, sometimes addition by subtraction, getting rid of Vernon Hargraves, they feel like some of the younger players in the secondary have stepped up a little bit. So we'll see. Foles obviously has not played well, so that's what you have to sort of gauge that with is, can he have success this week in what should be a good situation for him? That's what you're, sort of have to hope for if you trust him.
Yeah. And for the Jaguars, they've been blown out 3 straight games. They're playing horribly. And Jacksonville quarterbacks have thrown 47 or 48 passes in 3 straight games. It's Foles twice and Minshew once.
Yeah.
And only one of those has been good. And good being 21 points.
Yeah. Right.
Minshew was bad.
It's definitely not by design. It's just the way that the games have gone for Jackson.
Yeah, Doug Marrone basically had to say that Nick Foles is still a starter. You wonder if he has another bad first half, do they bench him for Minshew?
It's just such a juicy matchup. I mean, so you said you have Darnold top 5. Where do you have Nick Foles this week?
Foles top 15-ish, inside the top 20. I don't love the setup for him, despite the good matchup.
I'm starting Wentz ahead of Nick Foles this week.
Oh, I'm starting Wentz ahead of Deshaun Watson this week.
Good Lord.
Deshaun Watson's got the Patriots. Wentz is at the Dolphins.
You still start Deshaun Watson. He's still too good.
I don't know. Do you? I mean, you still start Dak Prescott, right?
Yeah.
Of course, the conditions will be better. Yeah, I mean, Wentz, do you need, and this is a relevant conversation.
I'm expecting Alshon to be back.
Drops.
I'm expecting Alshon to be back. Yeah. I mean, the fact that he was close last week and that they just made the move to cut Jordan Matthews, I think that tells you that one of them will be back, and most likely it's going to be Alshon and potentially both. So even without Alshon, though, I think Carson Wentz has 25 points on the table. I don't think Deshaun Watson's going to get there.
Guys, other than Darnold, when we look at Dalton, we look at Tannehill, Dalton, and Foles. And Dave, are those the other? If you had a top 4, would it also be Darnold, Tannehill, Dalton, Foles?
My top 4 among quarterbacks involve those guys: Darnold, Tannehill, Foles, Dalton.
Okay. How many of them are you starting ahead of, let's say, Dak Prescott and Josh Allen, who face each other on Thanksgiving?
The only one I'm starting ahead of Dak is Darnold. But I'll start Darnold and Tannehill over Josh Allen.
Okay. Good to know.
Yeah, I'd go Darnold over Allen, but I go Allen over Tannehill.
All right. So again, it's Darnold, who's only 51% owned, and he is facing the Bengals this week and then the Dolphins next week. Tannehill has the Colts, who haven't given up more than 22 fantasy points to a quarterback since week 3. That includes Deshaun Watson twice and Patrick Mahomes. But Tannehill has had good games against teams that currently rank 8th and 12th against quarterbacks. He's had like the Chargers and the Panthers. He's had good games against them.
And he's doing it on low passing volume.
Well, he's also running his legs. He's run for 37 yards or more in 3 straight games.
Yeah. He's just finding ways to make plays. It's really great to see.
Dalton has the Jets. Nick Foles has the Bucs. Now, if you can't get those guys, you're in a deeper league. Well, actually, Daniel Jones is owned in a lot of leagues, but the Packers, one thing I couldn't believe last night, looking at the numbers, the Packers' pass defense, it hasn't necessarily shown up in fantasy points because they allow the seventh fewest fantasy points to quarterbacks. But last 5 games, opposing quarterbacks are throwing for 290 yards per game against the Packers, 9.2 yards per attempt.
Yeah.
And 4 of the 5 teams that have faced them have had quarterback ratings, because Oakland had 2 quarterbacks, but quarterback ratings of 107 or better. And they didn't face really good quarterbacks either. It's crazy, because they faced Matt Moore instead of Mahomes. So I don't know about Daniel Jones this week, but weeks 15 and 16, he has Miami and Washington. They can't run the ball. Want to throw him in there. Trubisky's got the Lions.
I was going to bring up Trubisky as a possible.
He's the 5th guy.
Yeah, right. I wouldn't want him to be your first or second guy. That would make me sick. But he's got at least 20 fantasy points in 2 of his last 3 games. Matchup against Detroit's going to be really good for him. Hopefully he's accurate enough to have a 60% completion rate, and he's done that enough this year, and he's running a little bit more.
Well, he had one of those games was against Detroit. It was 3 games ago. He had 24 points against them, and the Lions.
How many pass attempts in that game? 23. 24 points on 23 pass attempts. That's what you're talking about with the Lions.
You're not looking at a great player, but you're also not looking at a great defense. And Trey Flowers missed last week's game, and so we'll see if he's able to come back on a short week, which clearly would impact that pass rush. But Trubisky has shown that. Huh?
Not really. Their pass rush has been
that's what I'm saying.
Dormant pretty much all year, Trey or no Trey.
If you're looking at a scenario of you're stuck, then he's not. But I'd start him over Brissett, just in terms of somebody who's been a starter and somebody that I had ranked as a top 10 guy last week. So I think Trubisky's got a higher ceiling than Jacoby does.
All right, Kyle Allen and Ryan Fitzpatrick. Maybe you could use them in Superflex leagues. Allen has Washington, and Fitzpatrick gets the Eagles, and they've been so good against quarterbacks. And let's talk about quarterbacks to drop real quick, and then we'll move on to running backs. We talked Derek Carr you can get rid of.
Mm-hmm.
Do you like Jacoby Brissett at all this week, or is he more of a drop? He's 76%. Okay.
You've seen enough of what, again, this offense is, and he's just not throwing the ball enough and having enough success. We'll see. I think there's going to be a big game for T.Y. Hilton, but I don't think it's going to necessarily mean Jacoby Brissett goes over 20 points.
And for what it's worth, no more Eric Ebron. So that's not necessarily a problem in the red zone as much as it's a problem for big plays, because Ebron was used in that regard. They'd find matchups for him, and he'd have a bunch of 15-plus yard passes.
Phillip Rivers you can drop. 92% owned Phillip Rivers at Denver this week.
I want to try and make some sort of case for Phillip.
He had 4 points against Denver the first time these 2 teams met, and he was playing better than.
Yeah, you can't use him.
I want to see if
I think it's over. I think it's over.
I do want to see if Denver's still a tough matchup, because the last 2 weeks they haven't really been as good. So we shall see. But no, I'm not saying I'm starting Phillip Rivers. It's really more just looking at schedules and seeing who has Denver later in the year. And then Matt Ryan, I don't want to drop him. You guys?
If you need to pick up, if I only have one roster spot to play with, I'm dropping him for Darnold or Tannehill.
It's true. Yeah, if you have to start someone this week, yeah. But I think we'd rather hold on to him, hope he gets Hooper back, gets Freeman back, and could be good in your fantasy post.
I think the Saints are going to smash them this week, though. I mean, after losing to them in their building.
Then they've got Carolina. They're at San Francisco, Jacksonville at home in Week 16. Oh, good. They've got Tampa Bay in Week 17.
That worked out well.
Yeah.
Hey, let's do something real quick here, just in case people, you have a 40-minute commute and you're not going to get to hear the entire show. Rapid fire, give me the top 3 or 4 at each position remaining, and then we'll get into it after that. So start with running back. I mean, we've already talked about that, but give it to us again.
Jonathan Williams, Rashad Penny, Benny Snell, and then one of the Chiefs guys, depending on who's available to you, McCoy or Darryl Williams.
I'd throw Raheem Mostert in there at the end ahead of the Chiefs guys.
I would take Chase Edmonds over Raheem Mostert.
How come?
Because just in case he's the second guy behind Kenyon Drake. Matt Breida.
Yeah, it was also Matt Breida.
Yeah.
And we already said Rashad Penny would be kind of lower if you need someone for this week. All right, wide receiver.
He'd still be third. You'd still take him ahead of almost anybody else.
I mean, he's gonna probably be the first guy added just because of ownership percentage. So just keep that in mind.
Bo Scarborough, by the way, 71% would also be a priority. Wide receivers.
For me, it's Didi Westbrook, Sterling Shepard, and Darius Slayton. I just think one of the 2 Giants guys has a chance to play well, if not both. A.J. Brown would be right after them, and then Cole Beasley.
I've got.
What about?
This is just for this week. I've got Didi first, James Washington second, Cole Beasley third. I'm not thinking long term with receivers at all because you can find a receiver off the waiver wire each week, and I don't think that there's a league winner among the receivers on waivers
what about
right now.
Randall Cobb? Randall Cobb he's
been playing
86
great
or more yards, 3 straight games.
Yeah, there really isn't like one standout guy above the rest because you look at all of these guys. Like I could sit here and tell you that Russell Gage could still be the best guy in PPR after what we saw last week. If Philip Dorsett and Mohamed Sanu are out once again, you could look at N'Keal Harry or Jacoby Myers. Those guys could easily be one of the top guys. If Tyreek Hill is out, Nicole Hardman could be the best guy. So there's a bunch of guys that are sort of in the same range. I mean, Robbie Anderson has scored in 2 straight games, and he gets the Bengals this week.
I'd recommend stashing Hardman for the fantasy playoffs if you have Tyreek Hill, just to have that element of the Chiefs' offense.
Look at what Anthony Miller's done the last 2 weeks, and now Taylor Gabriel's out.
True. Yep.
Yeah, and you could definitely handcuff wide receivers. We never really talk about it, but
this is the time of the year to do it. Yeah.
Tight ends.
I'm going Doyle first because I think he's got long-term potential. And then after that, it's Kyle Rudolph second, Ryan Griffin third, Irv Smith after that, and David Njoku after that. But things will change if Adam Thielen's healthy, if reports come out that say Njoku's going to play. But Doyle is still going to be my numero uno at tight end.
Griffin's one for me, and it's not close. A very good second option would be Gerald Everett just because of the matchup against the Cardinals. I think he's going to score because every tight end scores against the Cardinals. And then I'd put Jack Doyle third, followed by Rudolph fourth, and then Jacob Hollister still fifth. He should have had a touchdown last week.
Yeah.
And he's just been playing very well.
A rare misfire from Russell Wilson on that play.
DSTs.
Eagles by far, number 1.
And they've got long-term potential like Adam talked about earlier.
Panthers, number 2. They get Washington. Packers get Daniel Jones. I think they're going to go after him, and their pass rush gets back at it. And then I'd put the Chargers fourth. You're talking about Brandon Allen or Drew Lock has not looked good, and they're getting Derwin James back. So could be a great situation for that pass rush with Bosa and Ingram probably sacking the Broncos quarterback 25 times.
You must love Andy Dalton this week.
I must love Andy Dalton this week.
To not have the Jets on here as a DST to go and
not
get?
Not better than these 4.
I think they're better than everyone on this list except Philly.
I'm not looking at the Jets coming off one game where Derek Carr had his receivers drop the ball all over the place at home.
It's 3 games, though.
I'm looking at a Bengals offense that's been inept pretty much
I think they're going to be fired up, though. I really do. I think, getting Andy Dalton back, Joe Mixon was all fired up yesterday on Twitter. He was so excited about it. I think they'll play better.
Look, this is a really strong week for streaming DSTs. That's the thing. Like,
that's true.
Those 5 teams that we mentioned, okay, Eagles, Panthers, Packers, Chargers, Jets, all pretty good. The Titans are always solid. They're 41% owned. It's a good week, so I don't know that it needs to be a huge priority for you unless you're looking ahead and you want to get the Eagles because they have 3 good matchups in a row. So that's good. There has not been one team all year that has had just a flat-out bad game as a DST against the Giants. So, even in games where the Giants have scored a lot of points, the DSTs have done at least fine. So the Packers could be a nice fallback option because they've been playing horribly lately. But this is just such a good matchup against this turnover.
So it sounds like this is a week where you shouldn't spend any fab on a DST.
Depends on your situation.
Very little.
I'm going to make the exception for the Eagles because, like I said, I think.
But how much? What? 5?
Depends on what you
like $100 budget.
If this is it for you, you spend what you got to spend. You got to win.
Sure. But I think, I don't think I'll ever spend more than like $5 on a DST out of $100 budget, original budget. But yes, they feel like the DST to go get right now because they could be in your lineup for the next 3 weeks, no question, and absolutely crushing it. Kickers and then IDP real quick.
The kickers would be Crosby, Jake Elliott, Zane Gonzalez, and Mike Badgley.
And Dave?
Yeah, I've got a long list of DSTs or IDPs rather. I'll go through them quickly. Defensive line: Eric Armstead, Max Crosby, Mad Max Crosby, Marcus Golden. With the Giants. Linebackers: James Burgess with the Jets, Devin White with the Bucks, AJ Johnson with the Broncos, Matt Milano with the Bills, Devondre Campbell with the Falcons, and then maybe Jared Davis. I should throw in Jared Davis at linebacker as well. He's been playing better the last couple of games. Jamel Dean should be your top defensive back to go get. Ever since the Bucks made him a starter, double-digit points every single week. Trey Flowers is another one. This is Trey Flowers with Seattle, not Trey Flowers with Detroit. And finally, Marcus Peters. Rare for a cornerback to have good numbers in IDP, but he's been getting the job done with Baltimore. I think he can keep it up.
All right, I'm going to tell you about SeatGeek. Then we're going to switch over to our podcast audio studio here. But do you ever feel like ticketing websites they don't care about the customer experience? They make getting to the event difficult on purpose. Not SeatGeek. The customer satisfaction is great. The reviews, there are over 50,000 5-star reviews for SeatGeek. And I can tell you, I'm one of those reviewers. This is a great product, and you can get $10 off your first purchase with the promo code FFT on SeatGeek. Look, they just make it so easy. You search for an event on the SeatGeek app. SeatGeek brings in tickets from all over the web, displays the tickets on an interactive seat map, grades the tickets based on value. You get to see the best values. You get to see the lowest prices. You get to see the full price with all the fees if you change your settings for that. I think it's such a great app, and I was blown away the first time I used it because it was so much easier than anything I'd ever used to buy tickets. So next time you need to go to an event, if it's sports, if it's concerts, if it's comedy, if it's theater, if you want guaranteed tickets, okay, every purchase is fully guaranteed. You have to use the SeatGeek app, or go to SeatGeek.com. The promo code is FFT. Save $10 off your first purchase. Promo code is FFT on SeatGeek. All right, let's get into running backs in just a few seconds. We take a quick break. Running backs, luckily we've covered most of this, so I don't think we're going to talk anymore about Scarborough and Williams and Penny and Snell. LaShawn McCoy, all right, let me say a hypothetical. If I told you Damian Williams were out this week, where would LaShawn McCoy and Darryl Williams be on your priority list?
LaShawn would be second for me behind Jonathan Williams. Darryl Williams might be right behind him.
Yep.
Okay, great. And
Darryl Williams is kind of on my list anyway, but toward the bottom. That he's for deeper. He's a stash in deeper leagues.
So then other guys. Well, before we get to the deeper leagues, we got Tariq Cohen, who could be available. Now he's 79% owned. To me, that means he's owned in every PPR league and non-PPR not so much. The Lions give up the third most receiving yards per game to running backs. Cohen himself had 4 for 23 and a touchdown receiving against the Lions. Is Tariq Cohen a starter in even non-PPR this week? He's getting more involved lately.
No.
I think it's
deeper flex maybe.
Okay.
Deeper league flex. But in PPR, I mean, look, 11 or more points, 3 straight games. It's hard to overlook that.
And all right, if you need a running back and the guys that we've been talking about are not available, although Benny Snell is only owned in 10% of leagues, so his ownership percent is going to shoot up. Chase Edmonds. Oh, I have to ask this. I'm sorry. Benny Snell, what do you expect this week against Cleveland with Connor likely out? Cleveland, actually, this is so strange. 5 straight games without a running back getting double-digit carries against Cleveland. Only one game in their last 6 where running backs had double digits in non-PPR fantasy points. Carries, like nobody's getting carries against Cleveland, so it's hard to evaluate their run defense lately. So how good of a start is Benny Snell going to be this week?
He's not a great start.
Nope.
He's a flex.
Okay. All right,
but that's partially because we have no more bye weeks. It's not a big week of injuries at the position without having a capable replacement. And what I mean by that is Mack is out, but Williams is basically Mack. And so then you look at the rest of the injuries. Devonta Freeman hopefully coming back. Damian Williams hopefully healthy. Jordan Howard has a direct replacement that's probably just as good. So
So as of right now, are you ranking Miles Sanders ahead of Benny Snell?
Oh, yeah.
By a long way, yeah.
Okay. Obviously, that could change if Howard comes back. So running backs in deeper leagues, Chase Edmonds, Raheem Mostert, Jay Ajayi. He had 6 carries last week. Nyheim Hines, Patrick Laird for the Dolphins, and Kareth White, he had 6 carries for 43 yards at Cincinnati. He's
right.
Pittsburgh
He got the game going for Pittsburgh, and then Benny Snell took over later.
All right. So Chase Edmonds, Jamie, you kind of said you'd rather have him than I think Mostert.
Yeah, I mean, Matt Breida is expected to return this week. That's something that at least I saw that he could return Sunday. So, Mostert is basically dependent on Breida being out. He's not the lead guy there. Edmonds, I don't know what they're going to do with the Cardinals. I'd be shocked if Kenyon Drake's not the lead guy, but then who's second? Will it be Edmonds or will it be David Johnson?
It'll be Edmonds.
I would expect that to be the case.
Right.
So, the last game we saw for the Cardinals, they didn't give a second guy touches because David Johnson didn't get any opportunities to touch the ball. So what does that mean? But they clearly like Edmonds. They obviously like Kenyon Drake. So will they just share the ball with those two guys? There's no starter among this group, but should something happen to Drake, would Edmonds now be the next man up for the Cardinals over David Johnson?
Now, okay, none of these guys really were picking up as starts, but I think you look at the 49ers backfield, and I gave this stat on yesterday's show. You better have listened. In his last 4 games, Tevin Coleman has 44 carries. 4 of them have gone for more than 5 yards. 1 of them has gone for more than 11 yards. He has really been bad for 4 straight games. And that was after he destroyed the Panthers. Mostert looks like he's shot out of a cannon every time he touches the ball.
Yeah.
And then
Same thing with Jeff Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
Breida and Mostert are over 5 yards per carry this year. So, if you own Tevin Coleman and you're relying on him, first of all, you should be playing the waiver wire this week if you can. But who's the best back to get there if you own Coleman or if you just want to speculate? Is it Mostert or Breida?
I would imagine that if Breida is healthy, he'll be in a good position to be potentially their number 1 guy.
It's
and maybe
funny,
they reshuffle it a little bit with how they use him.
When you come off the game last week or Sunday night against the Packers, is that a win for Coleman?
No.
Although he looked great on
scored.
that 11-yard run that he had.
Scored.
Yeah, but
that was the cheapest touchdown. Like he ran for half a yard and got pushed for a yard and a half.
Yep.
It just looks terrible. But it is nice to see him get the goal line work. That's the only thing saving his value right now.
It's also why his yards per carry is where it is.
I don't know. I just told you 44 carries in his last 4 games.
But his short yardage work. I mean, that's going to hurt anybody's yards per carry.
He's going to stink this week against Baltimore.
Yeah, that's the other thing. They're facing Baltimore, so I don't think we want to start. I'm guessing, is he a top 24 running back this week?
He is not.
No.
Okay. I have Kareem Hunt and Ronald Jones ranked ahead of him in PPR.
Okay. Other running backs, like Peyton Barber, look, we know what he is, but he's got 11 carries in 2 of his last 3 games. He scores sometimes. Jordan Wilkins.
I love Ronald Jones this week.
Against the Jaguars. Oh, God, their run defense has been terrible. Kadri Olsen has a touchdown in 2 straight games. That's it. All right, wide receivers. So this is the one position I think we've talked the least about, so let's get into it. First of all, if you see Deebo Samuel and Will Fuller on your waiver wire, they're 79 and 78% owned. They've got dreadful matchups. Deebo's got the Ravens, and he only had 2 targets last week. And Will Fuller didn't have a great matchup against the Colts, and he had 140 yards, but now it's New England. So do you pick them up, Deebo and Fuller?
Absolutely.
And for Fuller, it's New England and then it's Denver the following week. Yeah,
well, the nice thing about Fuller is that he's got a teammate who draws tougher coverage than he gets. And he proved last week that he's right back in the swing of things, and he's capable of catching deep balls. And I think you almost have to start him as at least a flex every week.
Not this week.
Yeah, what about this week?
I think you could this week.
Even
against
I'm not.
I've got him 30th in my rankings.
Yeah, he's barely inside my top 48. It's going to be a bad day for the Texans passing game.
I'm going to look it up right now. I'm going to guess the Patriots give up the fewest 40-plus yard pass plays in the NFL and probably 20-plus yard as well.
And they own the Texans.
Oh, you're right. They really do. So other wide receivers who are in that range, A.J. Green and Mohamed Sanu. How interested would you be in picking up A.J. Green and Mohamed Sanu? 78% owned.
I can't pick up AJ until I know if he's playing or not.
Yeah, but if you have an open roster spot to play with, it's not a bad thing. This is an interesting stat just from Stephon Gilmore, just as we're talking about that game. Stephon Gilmore in 2 games against DeAndre Hopkins since 2017. What would you guess his total yards is in those 2 games?
Hopkins yardage or yards that Gilmore allowed to Hopkins?
I'm going to guess 84.
Gilmore versus Hopkins. They're one-on-one matchup.
Oh, 35.
85 yards in 2 games.
Oh, good. I changed my guess. I had 84.
9 targets, 6 catches, 85 yards. He's got 1 interception, 1 pass breakup, and 1 pass interference penalty.
I believe he was also good against him when he was in Buffalo.
Yeah, so it's going to be a bad day.
It's going to be rough for Hopkins. Where do you have Hopkins ranked this week?
I think I put him at 25.
Wow. By the way, the Patriots give up the third fewest 20-plus yard pass plays and the second fewest 40-plus yard pass plays. Back to the waiver wire. Didi Westbrook, 58% owned. He had 9 targets last week. He had 6 targets the week before. I can't say he's doing a whole lot with it, but the matchup is just so tasty. I gave that stat about the Bucs. They give up 2 good games to 2 wide receivers every single week. Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton. Shepard had 9 targets. Slayton had 7. Slayton was much better. This is all about Golden Tate being out. If Golden Tate clears the concussion protocol, I don't know how you'll feel about them. But the Packers give up the most big pass plays in the NFL. And I do wonder if that's more of Darius Slayton's thing. I mean, he's definitely more of the downfield guy. But Shepard could do like a Deebo Samuel catch and run. But I don't know. Like, are you excited about Shepard and Slayton? This is not a great waiver wire week.
Shepard, yes. Yeah, excited. I mean, there's a chance here for them. The targets have been up for Shepard, and that's something I think you look at and say, okay, this could be another opportunity for him just with the fact that Golden Tate's out. So they're absolutely worth investing.
He's actually, I'd be shocked if he didn't have 5 or more catches because that's basically what he does every week.
He had 5 catches last week and no yards on top of it.
15.
Yeah, so if there's no Ingram and there's no Tate,
right?
And yeah, Shepard actually might be really good. 56% owned. PPR maybe more so. A.J. Brown, here are his yards in 5 games with Tannehill. 64, 11, 81, 17, 135. So every time we buy into Brown, he burns you. I know people are going to be hesitant there, but he's been doing better. Cole Beasley, Phillip Dorsett, James Washington, Randall Cobb. Dave, any names there that get your juices flowing?
No, nothing that gets my juices flowing. But I do think that James Washington, if there's still no juju, has a chance to have a couple of big plays. We've seen him have big plays. I think 3 of his last 4 games, he's had a catch for at least 20 yards. And he seems to be building confidence. And I hate the quarterback change. It's gone from an ugly passer to an even uglier one with Devin Hodges. But I still can buy into him maybe having a floor of 10 PPR points.
I think when you look at Randall Cobb, like, does he have the best game of a Dallas wide receiver this week?
Cobb?
Yeah.
He might.
Is he the best one?
Right. Playing in the slot, revenge game.
He's had
revenge games for Beasley, but yeah. Cobb, I'm sure, hates Buffalo anyway.
Why is Cobb having
for a second, I got confused between the two. Randall Cobb.
He had a really bad buffalo chicken sandwich one week, and he is going to take it out on the Buffalo Bills. But here I looked, he's had 7 to 8 targets, I think, in 4 straight games. And I looked at all the wide receivers that had exactly 7 to 8 targets against the Bills, and here were their PPR fantasy points. 5, 7, 7, 12, and 3. So not good, but that doesn't really mean anything.
But what do the slot receivers do? Because that's where you look for Cobb.
Like, nobody's done well against them, really. Very few. Devontae Parker's one of the only ones. They give up the second fewest points to wide receivers. The Bears are next week for Cobb. They give up the third fewest. But the Patriots give up the fewest. And he had 86 yards. And he did have a 59-yard catch. Didn't do much other than that.
Yeah. He's not anywhere close to my favorite receiver to pick up off waivers this week. You'll go after Didi. I'll go after James Washington before him. Cole Beasley, Sterling Shepard, A.J. Brown. Those guys are ahead of him.
I think when you look at the deeper targets at wide receiver, the deeper leagues, it's more exciting. Not that you're starting them over them, but hey, we got some good options. We have Russell Gage, who had 8 catches last week. We have Robbie Anderson, who Jamie said has caught a touchdown in 2 straight games and gets the Bengals. Anthony Miller, 20 targets in his last 2 games. And now Taylor Gabriel's out, and he's at Detroit. I mean, that's actually pretty sneaky. Not even sneaky. That's a good one, Anthony Miller. Jacoby Myers.
If he can hold on to the football, and he hasn't scored yet this year. And you've got to hope that those targets stay up for him. So I'm not that excited over Anthony.
I'd be shocked if the targets don't stay up for him.
Yeah, Chris Conley, 17 targets in his last 2 games, and he's facing the Bucks. Allen Hurns, Greg Ward for the Eagles. So, yeah, there's some pretty solid options here. If Julio Jones doesn't play, I mean, Russell Gage could be great.
Even if Julio plays, Russell Gage.
He's 2%
I
owned.
think the key for Gage is whether or not Hooper or Devonta Freeman come back. And if they're out, then Gage is that extension of the run game because he's a short area target.
Okay, and obviously if Tyreek Hill's out, then Nicole Hardman, he was pretty good. He scored 7 or more non-PPR fantasy points, 11 or more PPR fantasy points in 3 of 4 games without Tyreek Hill, and he gets the Raiders. Cool. Who's your favorite Patriots wide receiver to pick up this week? They honestly, all 4 of them, other than Edelman, could be on waivers.
It depends what you need. If you're looking ahead, I think Dorsett, assuming Sanu's not available, because I think he gets thrown back in as the second, third guy.
All right.
But then I'd go Harry, I'd go Myers next.
I would take Myers over Harry, but both of them could be off my team by the end of the week.
I got one more sleeper to throw out. Auden Tate with Andy Dalton back against the Jets.
Could be, although targets have been down for him. Erickson's been the one that's sort of passed him a little bit the last month.
Maybe that's the sleeper you meant to say.
Yep.
No, well, I thought maybe it was more of a Dalton versus Finley thing, but I know Erickson was starting to play well with Dalton there, so yeah, maybe. Tight ends, remember Hooper and Ingram could be available. Dallas Goedert, 66% owned. So we said earlier that Ryan Griffin is our favorite for Jamie, Jack Doyle for Dave. How about Goddard compared to those two?
He would be behind.
Yeah, he's behind him.
Yeah.
I mean, especially if Jeffrey's back. But still, it's the Dolphins.
Yeah. The Dolphins, if Ryan Griffin had held onto that touchdown, the Dolphins would have allowed a touchdown in 3 straight games before last week when I don't even remember who they played, the Browns. Okay, so Ryan Griffin, Gerald Everett. So do we have faith in any of the Rams? I know we're not going to talk about this game. We're going to run out of time. Do we have faith in any of the Rams this week in this juicy matchup?
I actually think they bounce back and play well just because Arizona's so bad defensively.
Okay, so
I don't think they're in shambles defensively. They've got a pass rush. That's a problem for Jared Goff. But the track record against tight ends speaks for itself, and that's why you buy into Everett.
I think we've spoken enough about Jack Doyle. He's got 2 good matchups coming up. He's got the red zone target leader of the team out for the year, and he was a top 10 PPR tight end 2 seasons ago before the Ebron acquisition. Kyle Rudolph has scored 5 touchdown catches in his last 4 games. And it's obviously dependent on Thielen, but man, the Seahawks stink against tight ends. They allow the 5th most fantasy points to tight ends. So I wonder if Rudolph could be good even with Thielen there. What do you think?
I'd prefer to go with him if Thielen's out.
Oh, sure.
Thielen is another legit red zone target that takes Rudolph away. And Rudolph is basically, with Thielen playing, he's a touchdown or bust tight end.
Let me go through the list again and tell me, at what point do we stop having good options that we are excited to start? Goddard, Griffin, Everett, Doyle.
And we're there.
You sure?
No, Rudolph would be there if Thielen's out.
That's true.
Okay. All right, cool. Rudolph, Jacob Hollister against Minnesota. They've been pretty good against tight ends. David Njoku has a very good schedule. Like, you could pick him up as a stash maybe at Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, and at Arizona next 3 weeks.
You absolutely should.
Yeah, we don't know what his role will be, but it could be worth a gamble. Delaney Walker could be back this week. Noah Fant. Knew he was going to struggle last week, but yeah, I don't know. What do you think about Fant this week against the Chargers?
He'll get a lot of targets and probably not do a lot with it.
I'm not excited about it.
Gesicki?
Unless you get points for targets in your league.
Micah Sickie?
Scored his first NFL touchdown last week.
He's playing better. It's an interesting matchup. Not a great one, but Hollister again should have scored last week. We'll see. They're searching for that second guy, to help Devontae Parker. Allen Hurns scored last week, and so did Gesicki. So it's just one of those situations where he's at the bottom of the guys that you could turn to if you're stuck this week.
And then really, this is not that crazy, but Caden Smith for the Giants. He got 6 targets. He caught a touchdown at the Bears. He only had
5 catches,
17 yards, but yeah, 5 catches on 6 targets. Caden Smith faces the Packers, and they're just, I say it every week, they're just really bad against tight ends.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Well, it's Jamie's. It's not mine. But yeah, Caden Smith is not a crazy tight end streamer this week. Unless Red Ellison comes back, or obviously if Evan Ingram comes back.
Right, that's the only risk you run. But if and I should probably switch the order. I just put him there with the idea of those guys potentially returning. But if you tell me that Ingram and Ellison are out, I would put him 1, 2, 3, 4 as the sixth guy behind Griffin, Everett, Doyle, Rudolph, and Hollister.
And Goddard.
And I would start him over Rudolph if Thielen's back.
And Goddard too. I know you're not including him, but he's just over the threshold. But Goddard over Caden Smith, right?
I probably would. Yeah, I'd start Goddard over Caden Smith.
Okay. And DSTs, Eagles, Panthers, Packers, Chargers, Jets. Are you starting them over the Ravens, over the Niners, over the Patriots, over the Bills?
Over the Niners for sure. I'd start the Eagles and Panthers over the Ravens and Patriots.
The Ravens are my number one DST this week. They're just playing too hot.
I know, it's crazy. But yeah, like if you own the Niners, if you own the Patriots, the Bills at Dallas, that they're probably not going to have. Dallas is really good against DSTs. Yeah, you can do one of these streamers. Mason Crosby, Jake Elliott, Zane Gonzalez, Mike Badgley. Dave gave all those IDPs, and if we have just a few minutes, I'll take a look at players that we could consider dropping. We didn't get a chance to talk about that. Well, Jared Goff, if you're really discouraged, where do you have Jared Goff this week in this matchup against the Cardinals?
Around 15. I'd start him over Brady.
Would you drop Tom Brady at Houston, Kansas City, and at Cincinnati next week? Is he droppable?
Yes.
I say no.
Based on what?
Based on I want to have him for those other matchups. I don't totally hate Brady this week. He's just not in my top 12.
Jaylen Samuels.
He's droppable in smaller non-PPR leagues.
Yeah,
I think he's droppable across the board.
James White.
Non-PPR
droppable in smaller non-PPR leagues.
Carlos Hyde.
Droppable in smaller leagues, 10 teams or less.
He's droppable in almost all PPR leagues.
PPR, yeah. But you could see them riding him a little bit this week. Carlos
right.
Hyde against Pats.
He's good running back depth.
Duke Johnson.
Droppable.
Droppable in non-PPR leagues.
Brian Hill.
Totally droppable.
Here's a drop. Royce Freeman.
What do you think? Only if you want to handcuff him to Lindsey, because if Lindsey got hurt, then he'd be good.
Yeah, 2 carries last week. Darius Geis and Adrian Peterson.
Peterson's droppable. I'd hold Geis.
Same.
Curtis Samuel.
Droppable.
I think he's benchable.
And would you drop Greg Olsen for these streaming tight ends?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Love you guys. Talk to you. Talk to you guys on Thursday for a Thanksgiving feast, a special Thanksgiving episode. Not really. It's just the same old episode, but it's on Thanksgiving. We'll have Heath and Ben on tomorrow. For Dave, for Jamie, I'm Adam. Na, 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 na.